I discovered that I did not belong in my own family through a group chat called The Real Parkers. The name sounded like a joke, but the people in it were my husband and our 2 children. I was not included. I found it because my son handed me his iPad with a cracked screen before leaving for work and said, "Mom, can you drop this off at the Apple store while you're out? If there's a fee, just use the household card." I had planned to ignore the notifications that kept appearing after the repair. Then the group name popped up with 99 plus unread messages. The newest message was from my daughter, Chloe. "I wish I could live like Mom. No deadlines, no boss, just spending all day thinking about what to cook for dinner." My son, Tyler, replied almost immediately, "No thanks. I don't want to be 50 and have nothing to talk about except a grocery list." Then my husband, Mark, sent a laughing emoji. He wrote, "Don't blame your mother. She's been home too long to understand the pressure of having a real job." I stood in the bright hallway of a shopping center in Charlotte, North Carolina, holding the iPad of the child I had once stayed awake beside for 3 straight nights when he had pneumonia at 8 years old. I scrolled upward. The farther I went, the colder my hands became. Almost every photograph I had ever sent to our official family group had another version in this private one. I had taken a photo of the camellia bush in the front yard because I thought Chloe would like the pink flowers. She reposted it in The Real Parkers. Another flower picture. "Mom is turning into an old woman on Facebook." Tyler replied. She could open an exhibit called Things Nobody Asked to See. I sent Tyler a stretching video because he had complained about back pain after sitting at a computer for 10 hours a day. He took a screenshot and wrote, "Save me. Mom is sending me old people exercises again." Mark answered, "Don't argue with her. Your mother has too much free time, so she thinks everyone else does too." I had texted everyone asking whether they wanted salmon or chicken parmesan on Friday. Chloe wrote in the secret group, "Want to bet Mom makes another healthy meal and then stares at us like we're ungrateful?" Mark, "I just want to come home and eat without hearing about cholesterol and sodium." Tyler, "If Mom had to work one real day, she wouldn't have the energy to police what everyone eats." I kept scrolling. There was a conversation from 3 months earlier. It was the week I had gone to the hospital for a procedure because of a benign ovarian growth that had caused prolonged bleeding. Chloe had written, "Mom says she's tired again. I honestly don't understand what someone who stays home all day gets tired from." Mark, "Women's health stuff. She worries too much." Tyler, "As long as she doesn't make us eat bland food for another week." I sat down on a bench near the store. People passed in every direction. A child cried because he had dropped his ice cream. A young couple argued about where they had parked. A man carrying 2 shopping bags called his wife to ask if she needed anything else. Everything around me sounded so ordinary that my own life suddenly felt absurd. My name is Elaine Parker. I was 52 years old that year. I had been married to Mark Parker for 29 years. Chloe was 27 and worked as an account manager for an advertising agency. Tyler was 24, had recently finished graduate school in data analytics, and worked for an insurance company. Both still lived at home because rent in Charlotte had risen sharply, and Mark and I had told them they could stay for a few years while they saved money. I had never charged either of them rent, never asked them to contribute toward electricity, water, or food. Chloe occasionally bought groceries. Tyler paid for our streaming subscriptions. That was all. I did everything else that never appeared on a paycheck. I woke at 5:40 every morning. Made Mark's coffee with exactly the amount of half and half he liked. Prepared oatmeal for myself. Packed Tyler's lunch because he often forgot to eat. Reminded Chloe to bring her presentation deck. Made the grocery list. Went shopping. tracked Mark's prescription refills, booked everyone's dental appointments, paid utilities from the household account, changed sheets, washed towels, called plumbers, waited for air conditioning technicians, took cars in for maintenance, bought birthday gifts for Mark's relatives, ordered the Thanksgiving turkey, remembered who was allergic to pecans, remembered that Mark's aunt could not eat gluten, remembered that Tyler hated raw onion, remembered that Chloe liked unsweetened yogurt but only vanilla. Nobody called any of that work. For a long time, neither did I. Before Chloe was born, I worked as a nursing assistant at a rehabilitation center. I liked the job. I was good at observing older patients, noticing when someone was short of breath before a machine sounded, recognizing fear even when a patient only said, "I'm fine." When Chloe was 10 months old, Mark accepted a new job that required him to travel 4 days a week. Daycare cost almost as much as my salary. Both families said the most sensible choice was for me to stay home. Only for a few years, Mark had said. Then Tyler was born. Then Mark was promoted. Then his mother had a stroke and needed rides to therapy. Then my father developed Parkinson's. Then the children had soccer, orthodontists, SAT preparation, and college visits. 2 years became 27. I did not wake up one morning and decide to abandon a career. I lost it, a little at a time, through things somebody had to do. And I had been proud of that. That was what made the messages hurt most. I had not thought of myself as a victim. I thought I was building a family. In their eyes, I was simply a woman without a real job. My phone vibrated. Tyler was calling. I stared at his name for several seconds before answering. "Did you get the iPad?" "Yes." "How much was it?" $319. "Okay. Did you pay?" "Why should I?" There was silence. "I mean, just use the household card. The household card is funded by your father for groceries and household bills. The iPad is yours." Tyler laughed as though I had said something strange. "Are you serious?" "Very." "You have cash." "From where?" "I don't know. Money Dad gives you. Your father gives money to operate the household." "You're making a big deal over $300? I looked at the secret chat still open on the screen. "I think someone with a real job like you can pay to repair his own device." Tyler went silent. "What is wrong with you?" "Nothing." I ended the call. I did not delete the group. I did not send an angry message. I did not call Mark. I photographed every relevant conversation, emailed the screenshots to myself, downloaded the chat history into a private cloud folder. Then I locked the iPad, placed it in my bag, and went to the grocery store. Old reflexes were still powerful. I already had a list: salmon for Mark, arugula for Chloe, protein yogurt for Tyler, laundry pods, dishwasher tablets. I stood at the seafood counter for nearly 10 minutes. The clerk asked, "Ma'am, do you need help?" I looked at the wild-caught salmon priced at nearly $30 a pound. I had bought that kind for years because Mark said farmed salmon smelled wrong. In the group chat, he had just said I knew nothing beyond grocery prices. I put the salmon back. I bought a bowl of soup and a sandwich for myself. Then I went home. At 6:15, Mark walked into the kitchen. He set his briefcase on a chair. "Where's dinner?" I was sitting with a book. "There isn't any." Mark thought I was joking. "Elaine." "Yes?" "What are we eating?" "I already ate." Chloe came in behind him. "Mom, I have a call at 7. Is there something quick?" "There are eggs, cheese, vegetables, and turkey in the refrigerator." She stared at me. "You didn't cook?" "No." Tyler came up from the basement and set the repaired iPad on the counter. I told Dad about the repair fee. Mark turned toward me. You made Tyler pay? It's his device. He's trying to save money. So am I. Mark frowned. The household money is not money you earn. The sentence made the kitchen go silent inside my head. Not because I had never known he thought it. Because it was the first time he said it plainly. I closed my book. You're right. So from now on, I'll use household money only for actual household expenses. Personal expenses for grown adults are their own responsibility. Chloe laughed. Are you doing a budget reset? Maybe. Mark opened the refrigerator. There's no salmon. No, you knew I wanted fish tonight. I knew. Then why didn't you buy it? I didn't want to. He turned. Elaine, if you're angry about something, say it. I looked at all three of them. They were waiting for me to explain the change. Nobody asked whether I was tired. Nobody asked how I was recovering from the procedure 3 months earlier. Nobody noticed that I had been buying food around their preferences for decades. They noticed only that dinner had not appeared. I have a doctor's appointment tomorrow, I said. Mark sighed. More hormone stuff? Chloe checked her phone. Tyler opened the freezer looking for pizza. I smiled very slightly. Maybe. The next day, I went to my primary care physician. I did not fake an illness. I did not need to. My blood pressure was higher than usual. My ferritin was low. I was sleeping 4 to 5 hours a night. In 6 months, I had twice forgotten to turn off a burner and once driven to the grocery store without remembering what I needed to buy. The doctor asked, "How many people are you taking care of?" I said, 3 adults and myself, when there's time. She did not laugh. She asked about stress. I began explaining. Not the group chat. Only my daily schedule. When I finished, she put down her pen. Elaine, I don't think you have dementia. What you're describing is consistent with burnout, sleep deprivation, iron deficiency, and cognitive overload. But I want to run tests to rule out other problems. She ordered blood work, blood pressure monitoring, iron supplements, and referred me to a therapist. Most importantly, she said, for the next 4 weeks, you need to sharply reduce non-essential caregiving. Do not stay awake because of other adults. Do not carry all the housework. Sleep, walk, eat regularly. If someone in your family can do something themselves, let them. I asked, what if they don't want to? Then you still don't do it. I laughed for the first time in 2 days. The doctor wrote the instructions in my after-visit summary. No fake medical record. No frightening diagnosis. Just a 52-year-old woman who had done unpaid labor so long that her body had finally started sending invoices. That evening, I placed the after-visit summary on the dining table. Mark skimmed it for about 10 seconds. 4 weeks with no housework? The doctor wrote that I should sharply reduce non-essential caregiving and housework. Tyler looked up from his phone. So who cooks? That was the first question. Not, are you okay? Not, do you need more tests? It was, who cooks? Chloe looked at the paper. What does cognitive overload mean? Too much mental load. Is it dangerous? I need rest, sleep, and more testing. She nodded, but immediately asked, what about laundry? I need my blazer by Monday. Wash it yourself. Chloe stared at me as if I had suggested she sew the blazer by hand. Mark pushed the paper back. Fine. 1 month. We simplify. I waited to see what we meant. It meant Mark ordered pizza that night. The next morning, nobody threw the boxes away. Tyler made coffee and left grounds spilled across the counter. Chloe took a smoothie to work and left the blender in the sink. Mark walked past the full laundry basket and said, "We'll handle it this weekend." Nobody handled it. By the third day, the kitchen was full of dishes. The dishwasher was empty. It was not broken. Nobody had thought to load it. Tyler ordered DoorDash twice a day, then complained about delivery fees. Chloe bought salads and left the plastic containers on the table. Mark began wearing shirts again before they had been washed because he said the dry cleaner could not turn them around quickly enough. I followed my doctor's instructions. I cooked for myself, washed my own dishes, did my own laundry, walked 20 minutes, took iron, napped, read books. On the fourth day, Mark stood in my bedroom doorway. "You feeling better?" "A little. So could you make something light tonight?" "I'm not back to making dinner for everyone. I was just asking." "You were asking because you want me to cook." Mark sighed. "Elaine, I'm trying to support you, but you also have to understand the entire house is disrupted." "I understand. The doctor said reduce, not stop completely. I'm doing what is necessary for me. You can skip laundry, but dinner is a small thing." I looked at him. "In the group chat, you said dinner was a small thing." Mark blinked. I had not planned to bring it up then, but the sentence came out naturally. "What group chat?" I looked directly at him. "The real Parkers." The color changed in Mark's face. He did not ask how I knew. That meant he knew exactly what he had written. "Elaine, those were jokes between a father and his kids." I wasn't laughing. "You read someone else's private messages?" "I read them on the iPad Tyler handed me to repair. Notifications appeared. Then I kept reading." Mark sat on the edge of the bed. "You shouldn't invade people's privacy." "Would you like me to apologize for discovering that my husband and children have a family group without me where they make fun of me?" "Nobody was making fun of you. I have screenshots." He went silent. I said, "You told our children I don't understand work pressure. You said you were embarrassed taking me to events because I had nothing to talk about except groceries. You called my surgery women's health stuff. Want to read it again?" I was irritated. I exaggerated. "For 2 years? Children complain about parents. That's normal. You are not a child." Mark stood. "I'm not arguing while you're stressed. Rest." "That's what you say in the chat, too." "Don't argue with Mom. She doesn't understand." He paused for a second, then walked out. That night, the real Parkers went silent. I knew because the iPad was still logged in, but I did not open it again. I had seen enough. On the 5th day, Mark called a family meeting. We sat in the living room. Chloe looked uncomfortable. Tyler folded his arms. Mark said, "Your mother is burned out. We need to support her." I nearly laughed at the word support. He continued, "But the house still has to function. Still the house. Not me." Mark suggested hiring a cleaning service every other week. Chloe said, "That won't be enough. What about the kitchen every day?" Tyler said, "And food." Mark looked at me. Elaine could make simple meals when she feels up to it. "I'm not accepting that assignment." "This is brainstorming." "Then brainstorm without assigning me." Chloe said, "I can do my own laundry, but I'm not cooking." Tyler said, "I work until 6:30. Chloe turned toward her brother. "So do I," Mark said. "Chloe knows the kitchen better." She looked at him. "Why?" "Because you used to help your mother. Tyler has hands." Tyler laughed. "I don't know how to cook." "Then learn." Mark frowned. "Don't turn this into a gender argument." Chloe said, "You just assumed I'd cook because I'm the daughter." "You're better at it." I'm better at it because Mom made me help in the kitchen growing up, while Tyler got to play video games. I looked at my daughter. For the first time, she had said something I should have said 20 years earlier. Mark changed the subject. A little later, he mentioned Silver Pines Respite House, a short-term adult respite residence for people recovering from surgery, prolonged stress, or illness. One of Mark's coworkers had sent his mother there after hip surgery. "Just 1 week," he said. "You get complete rest. Meals, medication reminders, staff at night, and the rest of us get time to reorganize." "What does the rest of you need time to reorganize?" Mark glanced toward Tyler. "Routine." Chloe said, "If Mom leaves for a week, we have to do everything ourselves." Tyler said, "Then hire someone." Mark opened the website. The standard package at Silver Pines was $1,450 for a week. Another place near Lake Norman charged more than $3,000. Mark chose Silver Pines immediately. "This is enough." I looked at the price. 2 days earlier, he had said $319 to repair Tyler's iPad was nothing. Now, when it came to a place where I could rest, he immediately selected the cheapest option. I did not object. Not because I wanted them to get rid of me. I wanted to see clearly what the house would look like when I truly disappeared. I called Silver Pines and asked about admission requirements. It was not a nursing home. It was an 8-room adult respite residence for adults voluntarily staying short-term if they could still manage basic self-care and had a physician's clearance. They could not hold anyone against their will, manage property, or replace a hospital. My doctor agreed to complete the form. "If a week away from the family environment helps you sleep and recover, I don't object," she said. I signed the paperwork myself. Paid from my personal account. Did not let Mark sign anything for me. Silver Pines was not luxurious. The room was small. The walls were beige. The television was old. Breakfast was oatmeal, eggs, and toast. But it was clean. Quiet. The manager, Rosa Martinez, was 60 and had worked as a CNA for more than 30 years. On the day I arrived, she looked at my suitcase and asked, "Did your family bring you?" "I brought myself." "Good. Then when you want to leave, you decide." I looked at her. Such a simple sentence. But I had spent so long in a house where other people decided meal schedules, holidays, what I should say, and what I should feel, that it sounded like liberation. The first day, I slept nearly 10 hours. The second, I sat on the patio with a woman named Ruth, 78, who was staying temporarily because her daughter was traveling for work. Ruth asked, "What do you do?" I almost said, "I don't work." The words caught in my throat. "I'm a homemaker," Ruth said. "So you do every job without a title." I laughed. "My husband doesn't think so. Can your husband find his own passport?" I laughed harder. At that moment, my phone vibrated. Chloe was video calling. I answered. She stood in the kitchen with her hair tied up and her face flushed. "Mom, Dad says I have to cook tonight." "Okay." From behind her, I heard Mark. "Chloe, it's just pasta. Don't make it dramatic." She turned the camera. "Dad, I have a deadline." Mark said, "You're a woman. Someday if you have a family, you'll have to know how to balance things." Something inside me went still. Chloe looked directly at him. "So Mom balanced everything alone for 27 years. What exactly were you balancing?" Mark said, "Don't be disrespectful." Tyler laughed. "Just call Mom and ask for the recipe." Chloe turned back to me. "You see this?" "I see it. I'm not doing it." "Then don't." She stared at me. "But then they won't have anything to eat." They all have phones and credit cards. Chloe went silent. For the first time, I thought she understood a very small part of what my life had been. On the fourth day, Mark texted, "Cleaning service is $180 per visit. Meal prep is almost $500 a week. Ridiculous." I replied, "That is the market price of work nobody used to count." He did not answer. On the sixth day, Tyler called. "Mom, we're out of detergent. Target is 8 minutes from the house. What kind? Choose one. But what if I buy the wrong one? Then, buy a different one next time." "Mom, I'm resting." I ended the call. Rosa was changing sheets in the room across the hall. I stood and reached for one corner. She said, "No need, you're a guest." I'm used to helping. Being used to doing something does not mean you have to do it. I stopped. That sentence followed me through the rest of the week. On the morning of the seventh day, Mark arrived 2 hours earlier than planned. He carried grocery store flowers. "The whole family misses you." I looked at the bouquet. No card. "Or is the cleaning service too expensive?" Mark frowned. "Elaine, I'm only asking." He picked up my suitcase. "Come home. We'll start over." When I walked into the kitchen, a large sheet of paper was taped to the refrigerator. Family reset routine. Under it was a schedule. Elaine, dinner Monday through Friday, laundry Tuesday and Friday, groceries Wednesday. Chloe, wipe counters, dishwasher on weekends. Tyler, trash, lawn. Mark, bills, garage. I stared at it. Mark said, "I thought routine would help your recovery. The doctor said light activity is good." I turned toward him. The doctor did not prescribe 5 dinners and 4 people's laundry. This is division of labor. I still have more tasks than the other 3 combined. Tyler called from the sofa. "But Mom, you're home." I looked at him. "Yes, and I'm about to change that." I took the family reset routine off the refrigerator, folded it into quarters, and put it in a drawer. Mark looked at me. "What are you doing?" "I'm not following this schedule. We just agreed you need a routine." "You agreed with yourself." "Elaine, you cannot rest indefinitely. I haven't even finished the 4 weeks. You spent a week at Silver Pines. 7 days. And you look fine." "Looking fine does not mean I'm returning to serving 3 adults," Tyler muttered. "Nobody said you serve us." I turned toward him. "Who washes your sheets?" He said nothing. "Who remembers to buy your shampoo when it runs out?" Silence. "Who remembers to buy your shampoo when it runs out?" Silence. "Who remembers to buy your shampoo when it runs out?" Silence. "Who remembers to buy your shampoo when it runs out?" Silence. "Who remembers to buy your shampoo when it runs out?" Silence. "Who remembers to buy your shampoo when it runs out?" Silence. "Who remembers to buy your shampoo when it runs out?" Silence. Tyler looked down. I turned toward Chloe. "Who found a dry cleaner willing to save the dress you spilled wine on before your presentation?" She did not answer. I looked at Mark. "Who orders your blood pressure medication, buys gifts for your mother, organizes tax receipts, calls the HVAC company, books the hotel for the Parker family reunion, cooks Thanksgiving, and remembers that your brother is allergic to shellfish?" Mark said, "Those are things you chose to take on." The sentence hurt in a clean, quiet way. No shouting, no surprise, only confirmation of everything I had read. "Good," I said. "Then I'm giving them back." Mark stared at me. "Don't be childish." "I'm being very adult." From that day forward, I started documenting. Not to prove how much I did. I was tired of proving. I documented because for the first time I needed to understand my marriage financially. Mark earned about $185,000 a year with bonuses. He transferred $2,600 each month into a joint checking account for groceries, utilities, household supplies, co-pays, gifts, and small expenses. The mortgage came directly from the account where his salary landed. He always said, "I handle the big money, you handle the house." I had once thought that division was fair, but household costs had risen over the years, while the amount he transferred barely changed. Whenever we were short, I used my own small earnings. I had occasionally helped elderly neighbors for a few hours, baked for church fundraisers, sold handmade items on Etsy for a while. The money was not large, but it disappeared into groceries, school trips, takeout, and gifts for the children. I had a personal savings account with about $17,000 from an aunt's inheritance, 3 Series I savings bonds in my name, a small whole life policy my parents had purchased when I was young, with a cash value above $20,000. I had once planned to leave all of it to the children. I did not cash anything out immediately. I called a family law attorney. Her name was Rebecca Sloan. I said, "I'm not certain I want a divorce. I only want to know what it looks like in reality if a 52-year-old woman with almost 30 years outside the workforce leaves a marriage." Rebecca said, "That is exactly when you should know the facts before making decisions." North Carolina would not let me divorce Mark the following week. To obtain an absolute divorce, spouses had to live separately for at least 1 year, with the intent that the separation be permanent. But we could sign a separation agreement once one of us moved out. Marital property could be divided through equitable distribution. The house was titled in both names. The retirement Mark accumulated during the marriage was not automatically his alone. Depending on the facts, I might have claims for post-separation support or alimony. Rebecca said, "Most important, do not hide assets. Do not empty joint accounts. Do not transfer money to relatives. Photograph and preserve every statement, tax return, retirement account, mortgage document, and insurance record." I want to take back the things I was saving for the children. Which assets are legally separate property? I told her about the inheritance, bonds, and insurance policy. We trace the source first. Separate property needs documentation. Don't act out of anger. I liked her because she did not tell me, "You deserve to take everything." She told me only what could be proved. I copied 7 years of tax returns. Mortgage statements, 401k, records, brokerage accounts, life insurance, the house deed, credit card statements. I discovered something that made me feel both foolish and sad. Our house had about $310,000 in equity. Mark's 401k held more than $640,000. Our joint brokerage account had nearly $94,000. I had spent years behaving as if I would not be able to buy groceries if Mark stopped transferring $2,600. Meanwhile, I had helped build a marriage with substantial assets. I did not know because I was unintelligent. I did not know because I had handed financial knowledge to Mark the same way he handed knowledge of the family to me. The difference was that he used my lack of knowledge to preserve power. I opened my own checking account. I did not transfer joint money into it. I deposited only the verified inheritance funds and any new income of my own. I began looking again at my professional skills. Rosa at Silver Pines sent me a link to the Nurse Aid I program at the local community college. "Not saying you have to decide now," she wrote. "Just showing you the door is still there." I saved the link. 2 weeks after I came home, Tyler got a stomach virus after an office potluck. He started vomiting around midnight. Out of habit, I got up when I heard the bathroom door. I stood outside. Tyler called. "Mom? Yes? I feel terrible. Do you have a fever?" "I don't know." I handed him a thermometer and electrolyte drink. That was all. He looked at me. "You're not staying with me? You're 24. "But I'm sick." "I know. You always used to." He stopped. Always used to. 3 words that contained my entire life. I said, "If you develop a high fever, blood, severe pain, or signs of dehydration, I'll drive you to urgent care. Otherwise, rest, drink fluids, and monitor yourself." "Mom, I'm going back to bed." The next morning, Mark was angry. "Our son was sick and you ignored him?" I gave him fluids and told him what warning signs to watch for. "He's your son. He's an adult. You've changed so much it's frightening." I looked at Mark. "Do you remember when I had COVID?" He frowned. 2 years earlier, the household had been infected one after another. I was the first person well enough to care for the others. I monitored oxygen levels, made soup, washed bedding. When the 3 of them were nearly recovered, I developed a fever close to 103. Mark was afraid of being reinfected and said, "The kids and I will stay at a hotel for 2 nights so you can rest." They left. I stayed alone in the house, asking a neighbor to leave medicine on the porch. I reminded Mark. He said, "That was COVID. Different." "What about after my ovarian procedure?" He looked away. The day I came home from surgery, Mark drove me back from the hospital and then left to play golf because he already had a client commitment. Chloe brought soup upstairs once. Tyler texted from the basement asking why the Wi-Fi was slow. "I didn't forget," I said. "I just used to call those things normal." Mark tapped his fingers on the table. "You're digging up everything to punish us." "No, I'm applying the same standard everyone used with me. I work." "So did I." "Housework isn't the same as my job." "Then hire someone." His expression changed. "I can hire anyone better than you." "I know what it costs." Silver Pines had given me a list of local support service rates when I asked. Housekeeping twice a week, meal preparation 3 times a week, laundry service, errand assistance. Together, the minimum was around $3,800 to $4,700 per month depending on hours. That did not include the invisible work of remembering appointments and organizing holidays. I said, "Hire them." Mark gave a bitter laugh. "Don't challenge me." "I'm not challenging you. I'm giving you permission." He stood. "Nobody needs you as much as you think. If you keep behaving like this, I'll divorce you. I'm 55, I earn well, and finding someone younger than you wouldn't be difficult." The room went still. Chloe was on the stairs. Tyler stood near the hallway. They both heard him. In the past, the word divorce would have terrified me. Mark had used it before. When I objected to his mother moving in for 3 months. When I opposed the expensive truck he wanted to buy. When I wanted to return to school part-time. "If you're so unhappy, divorce me." Every time, I backed down. This time, I walked into the office and took out a folder. Rebecca had prepared a draft separation agreement for me to review. It was not signed. I placed it on the table. "Fine." Mark stared at the folder. "What is this?" "You want a divorce. North Carolina requires us to live separately for 1 year before filing for absolute divorce. We can begin the separation today." He said nothing. I continued. "Property goes through lawyers. Either you refinance and buy out my share of the house, or we sell under an agreement. Retirement gets valued. I move out." Mark looked as though he had just discovered that the weapon he had used to frighten me could fire in the opposite direction. You saw a lawyer? Yes. Behind my back? Like the group chat. Chloe looked away. Mark flushed. You've lost your mind. Maybe. But the doctor says it isn't dementia. Tyler said quietly. Mom, Dad is just angry. I looked at my son. That is his problem, Mark said through clenched teeth. If you walk out of this house, don't expect to come back. I looked around the kitchen, the marble island I had chosen, the spice cabinet I had labeled, the calendar with everyone's birthdays except mine, because I had always remembered my own. I don't expect to. I had rented a small apartment near Central Piedmont Community College 2 days earlier. My suitcase was already packed in the closet. I did not leave because Mark had just threatened me. I left because this time he happened to say exactly what I had already decided. I left the house on Saturday morning. There was no dramatic scene of Mark signing papers while I dragged a suitcase into the night. My attorney had told me to establish the date of separation clearly because North Carolina required spouses to live in separate residences with the intent to end the marriage. Before leaving, I emailed Mark. As of today, I am moving to a separate residence with the intention of living apart permanently. All communication regarding property, financial support, and divorce proceedings should go through Rebecca Sloan. I photographed the room, photographed what I took. I did not remove major marital property. I did not take the television. I did not take furniture. Only clothes, personal belongings, records, and several keepsakes that belonged to me. Chloe stood in the doorway. Mom? I looked at her. She did not know what to say. Finally, Chloe asked, Can I come visit? Yes. Tyler did not come downstairs. Mark stood in the kitchen. He did not say goodbye. I placed my spare key on the counter. At the apartment, I sat on the floor among 4 boxes. Nobody called me downstairs to eat. Nobody asked where the detergent was. Nobody knocked on the door looking for a passport. The first silence frightened me. The second silence let me breathe. That evening, my phone began exploding. Mark was not first. My younger sister, Rachel, was. What happened between you and Mark? He says you abandoned the family. I replied, I moved out and began a legal separation. Rachel called immediately. Are you crazy? Why? Almost 30 years, and you want a divorce now? At your age? What age is appropriate? That's not what I mean, but your kids are grown. Mark doesn't hit you. He hasn't cheated. You're doing this over housework? I asked, Is that what Mark told you? He said you were stressed, suddenly stopped cooking, left the house, and hired a lawyer. I stayed silent for several seconds. Rachel, I'm sending you something. I sent 3 screenshots from the real Parkers. She called again almost 10 minutes later. Her voice had changed. You read all of it? Enough. Chloe and Tyler said those things too? Yes. And Mark actually wrote people with real jobs? Yes. Rachel swore. Then she asked, What do you want me to do? Don't call them and fight. Just stop trying to send me back. Okay. The next day, Mark's relatives began messaging. His sister wrote, Marriage is compromise. Mark supported the family for almost 30 years. Don't forget that. A cousin wrote, Kids complaining about parents in private is normal. Don't destroy a family over a group chat. My own relatives joined in. One aunt said, A woman gets older and eventually needs her husband and children. If you act tough now, who will care for you later? I did not answer each person. I created a group email titled, For anyone asking why I left. I wrote, I am not asking anyone to choose sides, but if you intend to tell me to return, please read the full context first. I attached a 12-month household expense summary. The amount Mark transferred into the household account, actual grocery costs, utilities, insurance copays, gifts, small home maintenance expenses, the amounts I covered myself, a time log showing the household labor I performed during a normal week, not because I wanted to assign a wage to every minute, only to show what doing nothing actually looked like. Then I attached 8 screenshots. Not the entire chat, only the messages directly about me. At the end, I wrote, I did not separate because of one joke. I separated because of a long-standing system in which my labor was treated as worthless while my service was treated as mandatory. If you still believe I should return, please do not contact me further on this subject. The reaction changed quickly. Not everyone sided with me. One of Mark's aunts accused me of humiliating my husband and children. A cousin said a private group chat should remain private. I did not argue, but Rachel replied to everyone, if 3 adults don't want their words read by others, they can begin by not using a woman as the punchline inside her own family. After that, nobody messaged me for 3 days. Mark did. You embarrassed me in front of the entire family. I replied. I sent them only what you wrote. He called. I did not answer. Rebecca sent a formal separation proposal. The initial terms were, Mark would remain temporarily in the house. He would continue paying the mortgage. I would retain access for inventory and appraisal. The house would be professionally appraised. Mark would have 6 months to refinance and buy out my interest based on valuation, or agree to list the property. Retirement and brokerage accounts would be valued. Neither of us would interfere with the other's individual accounts. I requested moderate post-separation support while retraining for work, not as revenge, but because I had left the workforce for nearly 3 decades to support the marriage. Mark became furious. Through counsel, he said, Elaine is capable of working. I have no obligation to support her after she voluntarily left. Rebecca responded, with my age, work history, nearly 30-year employment gap, and Mark's income. We did not reach an agreement immediately. I did not depend on support in order to survive. I used legally traceable separate funds and my small savings to pay rent and tuition. I enrolled in an 8-week nurse aid eye program. On the first day, I was the oldest person in the class. A 19-year-old named Kayla asked, Have you worked in healthcare before? A very long time ago. How long? Before you were born. She laughed. So did I. The first weeks were not easy. Body mechanics had changed. Infection control standards had changed. Electronic charting. HEPA. Transfer belts. Dementia care. Vital signs. Skin integrity. I still knew how to observe people, but I had to relearn the professional standards. During one transfer practice, I used my back incorrectly and hurt for 3 days. The instructor did not say, You've cared for family, so you probably know. She said, Your technique is wrong. Fix it. I liked that. Here, caregiving had standards, training, accountability, and value measured by something other than gratitude. While I studied, the old house began changing. Chloe texted privately. Mom, Dad, and Tyler still don't do anything. I read the message. She continued. I hired a cleaner with my own money this week because I couldn't stand it anymore. I replied, That was your choice. She sent, I understand why that sentence used to make you angry. I did not respond immediately. A few minutes later, she wrote, Dad says daughters should know how to keep a house if they want a family someday. Tyler eats and leaves his plate in the sink. When I tell him to wash it, he says, "You're faster." I wrote, "What are you going to do?" Chloe. I told Dad that if women are born to do housework, I'm not interested in being born for that purpose. I smiled. Then she wrote, "Mom, I'm sorry." I set the phone down. An apology could be real. Real did not mean everything instantly returned to normal. I replied, "I hear your apology. I need time. Chloe, I understand." Tyler was different. His first message after I left, "Mom, what aisle is detergent in at Costco?" I did not answer. His second, "Dad says you kept the dishwasher warranty folder. Where is it?" I replied, "File cabinet, appliances section." His third, "I miss your meatloaf." I stared at that one for a long time, then wrote, "The recipe is in the blue cookbook." He did not reply. Mark's first messages were angry. After 2 months, the tone changed. Cleaner, $420. Laundry pickup, $280. Meal service for 3 people, over $1,100. Lawn care, $160. Those numbers still did not equal the full value of everything I had done, but they were enough to make him start calculating. One evening, Mark wrote, "I never realized everything in the house cost this much." I did not respond, because he still said everything. Not, "I never realized how much you did." 3 months later, I took my certification exam. I passed. The nurse aid registry card was small enough to fit in my wallet. I stared at my name for a long time. Elaine Parker. Not Mrs. Mark Parker. Not Mom. Not household contact. My name. My skills. For the first time in almost 30 years, something professional belonged to me alone. I accepted my first job at Briar Glen Assisted Living for $18.75 an hour. It was not high pay, but for the first time, the money I received was directly tied to my name and the hours I worked. My first shift began at 6 in the morning. I helped care for 6 residents under a nurse's supervision. I assisted one woman with compression garments, escorted a man with Parkinson's to the dining room, recorded fluid intake, noticed redness on a resident's heel, alerted the nurse when another resident suddenly seemed more confused than usual. By the end of the shift, my back hurt. I walked slowly to the parking lot, but I noticed something strange. Being tired there felt different from being tired at home. At Briar Glen, if I completed a transfer correctly, a coworker said, "Good assist." If I noticed an important change, the nurse documented it. If the unit was short-staffed, a supervisor had to adjust assignments. Nobody said, "You're here all day. What could you possibly be tired from?" Rosa texted from time to time. I told her I had become a CNA. She replied, "See, I told you that you already had a title." After 3 months, I increased to 4 shifts per week. I did not accept unlimited overtime. My therapist said something I hated hearing. "You have a habit of proving your worth by exhausting yourself." I hated it because it was true. I learned to say, "I can't take another shift. I need my day off. This is outside my scope. Please call the nurse." Those sentences were harder than taking blood pressure. While I learned not to rescue everyone, Chloe moved out of the family house. She rented an apartment with a friend. Mark was not happy. He said she was abandoning the family while things were difficult. Chloe sent me a screenshot. I replied, "Does that sentence sound familiar?" She called. "Mom, I understand." I could hear her crying. "I really thought you did nothing." Chloe said. At the agency, everyone talks about women having careers. I looked at you like an example of what I never wanted to become. I never thought that maybe you didn't get the same opportunities because you were doing everything for us. I sat on my apartment balcony. You were young, but you weren't a child when you wrote those messages. I know. An apology doesn't erase them. I know. But I believe you're beginning to understand. Chloe exhaled. I want to start over. Starting over begins with living differently. After that call, our relationship did not return to what it had been. It became something new. She invited me for coffee, did not ask me to do her laundry, did not ask me to bring groceries. Once she came to my apartment and washed her own mug before leaving. A very small thing. I almost cried. Tyler still lived with Mark. He messaged less. One time he wrote, "Mom, I think I understand why Chloe left. Dad gets angry every time the house isn't the way he wants." I asked, "What are you going to do?" He replied, "I don't know." I did not solve it for him. 10 months after I moved out, Mark asked to meet at the lawyer's office. He looked older. Not tragically old. Just old enough that for the first time I could see the things I had always covered. His shirt was wrinkled. The cuffs were worn. His hair was longer than usual. Mark said, "I want to stop this." Rebecca asked, "What do you mean by stop?" "Elaine comes home." I looked at him. "Why?" Mark seemed unprepared for the question. "Because this has been a marriage for almost 30 years. That's a length of time. I asked for a reason. I miss you. What do you miss?" He said nothing. I continued, "Do you miss talking to me?" We had rarely talked in bed because Mark said he had work in the morning. "Do you miss going places with me?" He had disliked bringing me to social events. "What hobby of mine do you miss?" Mark's jaw tightened. "Don't turn everything into a test. You said you miss me. I want to know who you miss." Finally, he said, "The house doesn't feel like a home anymore." I nodded. "That is the most honest thing you've said." Mark looked at me. "I'm sorry about the group chat. Because it made me leave, or because you were wrong?" "Both." "Do you still think I never had a real job?" He looked down at his hands. "I don't know." I understood. Even after 10 months, he still could not say, "You worked." He only understood what happened when that work disappeared. "I'm not coming back," I said. Mark leaned back. "What about the kids? They're adults. What about the house?" In the end, still the house. The deed was in both our names. An appraisal showed about $286,000 in equity. Mark could not refinance enough to buy out my share while preserving his retirement structure. He wanted to keep the house for another year. I refused. Eventually, we reached terms. Mark could remain in the house until the 18th month from the date of separation. He would pay the mortgage, property taxes, insurance, and maintenance. During that period, he could not open a HELOC, refinance, sell, or transfer ownership without my signature. If he could not buy out my share by the deadline, the house had to be listed. Net proceeds would be held by the closing attorney and divided under the settlement. Retirement would be divided by Qdro according to the agreed percentages. I would receive post-separation support until I had stable income, after which it would step down. Nobody won. There were numbers, documents, dates. I signed. Mark signed too. After exactly 1 year of living separately, Rebecca filed for absolute divorce. Mark did not contest it. A month later, I stood in a courthouse hearing so brief it barely resembled the ending of a 29-year marriage. The judge asked the standard questions. Had we lived separate and apart for at least 1 year? Yes. Did at least one spouse intend the separation to be permanent? Yes. Were residency requirements satisfied? Yes. There was no music. Nobody cried in the courtroom. The judge signed the order. I walked out as Elaine Parker, legally divorced. I kept the last name Parker, not for Mark. I had used it for nearly 30 years, my children carried it, and my CNA credential carried it. For the first time, I decided what a name meant to me. Mark stood outside the courtroom. You really don't regret this? I regret many things. The divorce? I regret that it had to reach this point before I understood. He did not ask more. 16 months after I left the house, Tyler called. He said he was engaged to a woman named Sophie. I knew Sophie. She was an elementary school teacher, soft-spoken, and always carried her own plate to the sink when she came to dinner. I congratulated him. Tyler said, Sophie's family isn't asking for a big wedding, but we want to buy a townhouse before we get married. We're about $30,000 short on the down payment. I waited. Dad said if the house sells, there'll be money. The house will be sold under the settlement if Dad cannot buy me out. So could you sign early? Sign what early? The listing or a private sale? Dad says someone at the dealership wants to buy it privately. I felt history standing in front of me with different names. Who? A guy at the dealership. Is there an appraisal and a broker? Mom, I'm only asking. Then the answer is no. The house is in both your father's and my names. Nobody sells or mortgages it without my signature. If it sells, my share goes into my account. Tyler was silent. I'm not asking for all of it, he said. I only need part. I am not using retirement or home equity to make a down payment for 2 adults. But you have money. 3 words. The same old logic. I said, ability does not create obligation. Tyler exhaled sharply. Dad said you would say that. Good, then you had your answer before calling. He hung up. It hurt. But I did not transfer money. 1 week later, Sophie called me. I didn't know Tyler asked you, she said. I don't want you thinking I requested it. I don't think that. We can rent for a few more years. Good. Tyler is angry. He is allowed to be angry. He is not entitled to my money. Sophie stayed quiet, then said, I understand. Tyler did not speak to me for nearly 2 months. Then he sent a message. I'm sorry. I thought because you had the money, you should help. I know that sounds like Grandma and Dad. I looked at it. I replied, recognizing it is the first step. Buy a house when you can afford one. I'll give a wedding gift at an amount I choose. He sent, okay. No heart, no flowery apology, but it was an okay I trusted, more than many speeches about family obligation. By the 18th month, Mark still could not refinance the house. His income was good enough to keep making the mortgage payment, but once the lender calculated my buyout, the retirement division, and his other obligations, the loan structure he wanted was not approved. The house went on the market. I did not attend the staging appointment, did not choose paint colors, did not arrange flowers on the dining table. Those were all things I would once have done automatically. The realtor hired a professional stager. Mark paid the fee under the settlement. After 3 weeks, we received a reasonable offer. The closing attorney paid off the mortgage, real estate commissions, and several small liens, then distributed the net proceeds according to our agreement. My share went into my individual account. I did not give it to Chloe. I did not give it to Tyler. I did not use it to buy an enormous house as proof that I had won. Rebecca referred me to a fee-only financial planner. Together, we created a plan: 12 months of emergency savings, an IRA, retirement funds received through the QDRO, money for future housing, a small travel fund. There was no category called Rescue Fund for adults who make financial decisions beyond their means. When the sale closed, Mark texted, "It's done. I guess you're happy." I looked at the screen. I wasn't happy. That house had contained birthday cakes, Christmas trees, college acceptance letters, a wall where we had marked the children's height. A place could hold good memories and still be a place I needed to leave. I replied, "I hope you find a home that fits your life now." Mark did not answer. I kept working at Briar Glen. After 9 months, I completed the medication aid training required for my role and an additional dementia care certification. I did not become a nurse. I did not pretend a few classes had turned me into a medical expert. I simply expanded my responsibilities within the work I was trained and legally allowed to perform. My pay increased. More importantly, I had references. Through a home care agency, one family hired me 3 afternoons a week to assist their 81-year-old mother after a hip fracture. I learned how to care for someone without doing everything for them. Her name was Marian Ellis. On my first day, I reached down to get her shoes. Marian said, "I can reach them." I stopped. She smiled. "You've been doing family caregiving for a long time, haven't you? How can you tell? Family caregivers often love people by doing everything. Good professional caregivers know when not to." That sentence stayed with me. 18 months after becoming a CNA, I transitioned into private duty caregiving through an agency for close to $30 an hour, with a stable schedule and basic benefits because I worked enough hours to qualify. It was not $10,000 a month. It was not magic, but it was income that, 2 years earlier, I had believed I would never be able to generate on my own. I paid rent, contributed to retirement, used my employer health plan, and sometimes bought myself a bunch of tulips simply because I liked them. Rachel came to visit. She looked around my apartment and said, "You live smaller than before." "Yes. Do you feel like something is missing?" I thought about it. "Closet space." Rachel laughed. "I thought you were going to say family." Family isn't measured in square footage. My relationship with Chloe continued improving. She learned to cook a few meals, not because women were supposed to cook, because adults needed to be able to feed themselves. Once she sent me a photograph of lasagna burned along one edge. I texted, "Cut off the burned corner." She replied, "You're not coming over to rescue it?" Me. No. She sent a laughing emoji. Tyler married Sophie in a small ceremony in the church garden. I gave them $5,000. The amount was my choice, not the $30,000 he had once requested. I also gave them a binder. Inside were sections labeled budget, insurance, beneficiaries, emergency contacts, home buying questions. Sophie said, "This is the scariest wedding gift, but probably the most useful." I laughed. Tyler hugged me. "I won't make Sophie do everything." I looked at my son. "Don't promise me. Show your wife." Mark attended the wedding too. We sat at different tables. He did not have a younger woman beside him replacing me. I did not have a new man either. That was not a failure for either of us. After the ceremony, Mark came over. "You look healthy." "Thank you. I use a cleaning service now." "Good. I know how to make eggs." "Excellent." He gave a sad smile. "I could have learned sooner." "Yes. I'm sorry." I looked at him. This time, there was no house to save, no laundry waiting, no proposal that I return. I believe you, I said. Forgiveness and going back were not the same thing. I could believe Mark regretted what he had done without handing my life back to him. Sometime later, the agency assigned me a new client. Her name was Margaret Lowell, 79, in the early stages of Parkinson's and recently recovering from pneumonia. She lived with her son Daniel and daughter-in-law Rebecca in a house in Myers Park. Rebecca was around 48. During our first meeting, she said, "I've been home since our oldest was born. Both kids are in college now. I'm thinking about going back to work part-time, but I'm not sure yet." An older version of me might have felt sorry for her, or worried that Rebecca would become me. But after 1 week, I saw the difference. One morning, Rebecca had a migraine. Daniel made breakfast before leaving for work. He checked that she had taken her medication. Then he called the cleaning service and moved their appointment earlier. When I arrived, he was loading laundry into the washer. Rebecca said, "I can do that." Daniel replied, "I know. But today you don't have to." His voice did not sound generous. He was not saying, "I'm helping you with your job." He was simply a person living in the house who saw something that needed doing and did it. At dinner one weekend, Daniel said in front of his mother, "Rebecca is the reason this family has functioned for 20 years. I don't know what we would have spent if we hired people to do everything she does." Rebecca shook her head. "You're talking like I'm the CFO." Daniel laughed. "You're scarier than a CFO. You know the dentist, tuition deadlines, roof warranty, and Wi-Fi password." Everyone laughed. Rebecca laughed too. Nobody was laughing at her. I stood by the kitchen counter cutting fruit for Margaret and felt my eyes sting, not from jealousy, because at last I had proof that the problem was never that I stayed home, not the apron, not the grocery list, not knowing the price of salmon or reminding a child to stretch his back. The problem was that I had lived in a family where the people benefiting from my labor had to make that labor look small so they would never feel indebted to gratitude. One afternoon, Margaret asked, "Elaine, do you regret not keeping your old career?" I thought for a long time. I regret believing that caring for people wasn't a career. And now you're doing it. Yes. But this time I have working hours, wages, and days off. Margaret smiled. "The days off are the most important." I laughed. That afternoon, Chloe texted, "Mom, I got promoted." I called immediately. I did not send advice, did not ask when she was getting married, did not tell her how much she should save. I only said, "I'm proud of you." Chloe was silent for a few seconds. "Thank you." Then she said, "I'm proud of you too, Mom." I looked out the window. Those words arrived almost 30 years late. Being late did not make them meaningless. I no longer lived waiting to hear them. That meant I could receive them without asking them to heal everything. I was 54 when I bought a small condo in my own name. It was not large. 2 bedrooms, a balcony overlooking a line of trees. I used one room as my bedroom. The other became a study and guest room. It did not automatically belong to one of my children. Nobody had the right to move in because of blood. Guests stayed because I invited them. On moving day, Rosa brought a rosemary plant. Mia brought wine. Rachel brought pizza. Chloe assembled a bookshelf. Tyler and Sophie put together a table. Nobody asked where dinner was. We ordered takeout. When everyone left, I stood alone in the kitchen. There were 4 cups in the sink. In the past, I would have washed them immediately. I turned off the light, left them until morning. Nobody died. No family collapsed. I went to bed. Before closing my eyes, I remembered the real Parkers. That name had once made me feel erased from my own family. Now it almost seemed sad. A real family is not a group chat divided into people who belong and people who do not. It is not earners and servants. It is not one person being allowed to be tired while another is expected to remain permanently available. A real family is a place where one person's labor does not have to become invisible, so everyone else can feel important. For 27 years, I believed that the more I sacrificed, the more deeply I proved my love. In the end, I understood something simpler. Love should not require one person to disappear so 3 other people can remain comfortable. I was still Chloe and Tyler's mother. I had once been Mark's wife. I was Rachel's sister. I was a caregiver. I was a woman who knew how to make meatloaf, read a medication list, monitor blood pressure, negotiate a work schedule, and say no when necessary. None of those roles made me less valuable than someone with an office, a deadline, or a business card. Homemaking had never made me small. Being treated as insignificant had once convinced me that I was. The day I stopped serving everyone was not the day my family fell apart. It was only the day the people living with me were forced to see what they had trained themselves not to notice. And the day I left was not the day I abandoned my family. It was the day I stopped abandoning myself.